So now that we have a cycle called Samsara and the force that keeps it spinning, karma, we can move on to dependent origination. 12 steps that we take which cause rebirth, and going back on them can break us out of the cycle of samsara and constant rebirth. Buddha introduced it as a way to break out of samsara, of the cycle, and although it describes suffering, reversing it can help us understand what not to do. Just in order for it to make more sense, I will go from 12 to 1 rather than from 1 to 12. However, I want to talk about the first dependent origination point, which is ignorance, because that is what everything then stems from. It's this notion that we have within ourselves, which is very deeply rooted inside of us as human beings, because we are ignorant creatures. We care about ourselves before we care about anything else. Fight or flight, for an example. You're not going to care about your surroundings in that very moment because you are with your mother, sister, brother. You're going to run because you need to save your own life. That is ignorance at its very finest, even though there's nothing wrong with that, and it's the animal instinct to run in a case of someone chasing you or an animal hunting you. Ignorance is, in its plainest, just caring about yourself before anything and anyone else. And despite that sounding really, really bad and just like unkind, people would act, on the surface, that is what the Buddha believes everyone to be naturally. So let's start at 12. The 12th point is aging and death. Aging and death is dependent on rebirth, which is number 11. These two work together, obviously, because once we die, we are reborn again into the cycle of samsara. Number 10 is becoming, and becoming is the element which we crave and desire, because as humans we crave and desire constant being. We don't like the thought of dying. We don't like thinking of having no presence or essence in this world. And this is what actually keeps the cycle spinning. From number 10, which is becoming, we have attachment arise. This attachment to life and to the pleasures it brings, despite the suffering it also brings, is another notion which keeps the cycle of samsara spinning. We cling to our desires, and one of the biggest desires is to life. We attach ourselves to people, to places. We cling on to them as if they have any meaning after this life is finished, which they don't. The way we use them do, the way we make sense of them do, but objects and people we cling on to, and again make this whole point of ignorance really clear here. This is what leads us into being reborn and into having more and more karmic energy to use up. Number 8 is craving. We attach ourselves onto things that we will later on crave. This is a man-made kind of, again, cycle of attaching ourselves to a person, say a boyfriend, a girlfriend. We attach ourselves, so we crave them. We crave the sexual behaviour. We then get out of it, the sexual pleasure we get out of the relationship. We attach ourselves to our hobby of sports, and then we crave the sports because of the way it makes ourselves feel or the way it makes our bodies look. We attach ourselves to traditions and culture which makes us kill animals, which then we crave in order to eat them and fulfill this tradition. because we crave something, we are bound to feel something towards the object or towards the person. We crave the sexuality of a relationship because we feel love towards the person, or because we feel lust towards the person. We crave our phones because we feel like it makes us feel part of something bigger. From feeling, we get contact. Contact is here very much the mental and physical connection we have with things. But contact here is very much linked to then the fifth point, which is the six senses. We have sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, and thought is one of them as well. And these naturally arise from the fourth point, which is name and form. In order to feel things and recognise things, we need to give them a name, and we need to know whether they're an object or whether they're a mental state. The very ideology that we have to have something that's an object or a person to make us mean more. There would be no sense of self if there was no things to give us that sense of self. And this is also very much where consciousness arises from, because I am sitting here and I am conscious of the fact that it's things and objects and other people that give me meaning, and those objects and people have a name or a form. A bottle is plastic, a person is skin and bone, and the consciousness that I have of this is what leads me further up in the dependent origination cycle, because consciousness then leads us to the karmic formation. Now, just to understand what karmic formation is actually all about, we have to consider what karma means. And all it means is action. That is the exact translation of karma. It's not what goes around comes back around, as people today may think it does. It simply means, in Pali and in Sanskrit, action. And now how that leads straight on from consciousness is quite clear. We're conscious of things and we take action to fulfill the tasks we're conscious of, or we take action to consciously act on our feelings towards somebody, or we consciously feel hungry. It's a physical feeling, but we're conscious of it in our head too. So we take action and eat. Now, because as unenlightened beings, which all of us are, we take the wrong actions, whatever it may be. We are not meant to constantly be trying to change the world around us, because that causes an imbalance, and the world does not accept imbalances as something of its nature. So what we carry on doing is trying to change things in order for us to like them and to please ourselves further with them, which obviously goes straight into ignorance, which is right at the top of the dependent origination cycle, which stems from karmic formations because of the actions we uptake in order to change and alter the world around us for the better that we think is better but actually is not. Now, at the very start, I mentioned that this cycle of dependent origination and rebirth can be used to break out of it, and you might be wondering, well, how? Because everything I've just described is quite very bad and quite horrendous in a sense. So what Buddha taught is that in order to break out of the constant rebirth, death and suffering, is to take all the steps of dependent origination and do the exact opposite to them throughout your life. So instead of clinging to someone and always being attached to them, you need to be calm and collected within yourself and within your own being. say, instead of craving, feel fulfilled with what you have already, and notice the things you have already, and notice the things for what they truly are in nature, instead of giving them name and form, or don't feel passion towards things that are materialistic, or towards people who are going to die anyway. Have the wisdom to see things for what they really are, rather than having to use your six senses to touch them or smell them or see them. So that's how you go about breaking out of the cycle of samsara, dependent origination. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.